Scorpio, the flame that won't be tamed fire. They say some souls were never made to be tamed. Not because they seek chaos, but because they were born from it. Among the 12 zodiac signs, there exists one force that does not simply survive storms. It is the storm. That force is Scorpio. You don't meet a Scorpio. You encounter them, like a thunderclap in a quiet sky, like a still lake that hides a whirlpool just beneath the surface. Fire-why Scorpio can't be contained. Scorpio doesn't wear their fire like a torch for attention. They carry it inward, like a sacred flame. Where others seek applause, Scorpio seeks truth. Not the polished kind you can post on Instagram, but the raw, painful, soul-stripping truth that burns illusions to ash. Many think they can handle a Scorpio. But here's the thing. You can't control what has already surrendered to its own destruction and emerged stronger. Unlike Aries, whose fire bursts outward, or Gemini, whose mind races to understand, Scorpio dives deep. They're not afraid of shadows. In fact, they live there. They understand that light means nothing without darkness. In a world obsessed with being seen, Scorpio masters the art of being felt. Brain the soul's mirror, a personal encounter. I once mentored a Scorpio student named Leo. Yes, ironically named. He was quiet, observant, but in every room he entered, the atmosphere shifted. Not because he demanded it, but because his energy required it. During a group presentation, a teammate tried to take credit for Leo's work. He didn't react, didn't argue. But after class, he requested a one-on-one conversation with me. What he shared wasn't just truth, it was surgical precision. Facts, patterns, intent, and a depth of awareness most adults haven't mastered. That's Scorpio. They don't explode, they eclipse. Quietly, decisively, permanently. New moon born from the ashes. Scorpio doesn't just know transformation, they embody it. These are souls who have faced betrayal, abandonment, failure, and chose not bitterness, but rebirth. They don't fear endings. They bow to them. Because in every ending, Scorpio sees a beginning. Where others panic at the unknown, Scorpio sees a blank canvas. Where others fear letting go, Scorpio sees the potential for evolution. There's something sacred in this. A kind of spiritual resilience that comes only from dying to who you once were and rising with clarity. Candle why taming them is impossible. Scorpio doesn't resist being tamed out of pride. They resist it because they have made peace with their inner wilderness. How can you leash what already dances freely with fire? You can put a Scorpio in a suit, a routine, a role, but if it doesn't align with their soul's frequency, they'll leave. Not with drama, but with silence so final, it echoes. They are loyal, not because they have to be, but because they choose to be. They love fiercely, not out of fear, but out of reverence. And once they sense inauthenticity, they walk away, not to punish, but to preserve their soul. Prayer beads, a Buddhist reflection, letting go to evolve. In Buddhist teachings, transformation is not achieved by clinging, but by surrendering. Scorpio understands this innately. They are the living embodiment of the lotus, growing from the mud, never afraid to get dirty, and always reaching toward the light. Many spiritual traditions speak of ego death. Scorpio doesn't just speak of it, they live it, over and over. And through this, they become what we all strive to be, unshakably real. Compass final takeaway, let them teach you. To tame a Scorpio is to betray what they were born to be. But to stand beside one, without fear, without pretense, is to be transformed yourself. So the next time you meet a Scorpio, don't try to decode them. Just watch, listen, feel. Let their presence disturb the lies you tell yourself. Let their silence echo in the places you've kept hidden. If you're ready to go deeper, not just into them, but into you, then stay with us. Because this is just the beginning. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom for the next chapter. Up next, why Scorpio's silence speaks louder than words, and how they walk the space between life and death without fear. Scorpion Part 2, the sacred art of destruction and rebirth fire. Some people avoid endings like the plague, but Scorpio honors them. They don't just accept destruction, they master it. Because they understand a truth most fear. Nothing real ever dies, it only transforms. To Scorpio, death isn't an end. It's a doorway, a shedding, a sacred fire. And in that fire, the false burns away and the soul is revealed. Fire the power of the fall. You'll rarely see a Scorpio clinging to what no longer serves them. While others hold tightly to relationships, careers, or versions of themselves out of fear, Scorpio lets go, not recklessly, but intuitively. Why? Because they know that clinging creates decay, that stagnation is a slow death, and that true growth often begins at rock bottom. It's not that they don't feel pain. They do, more than most, but they know how to metabolize it, like fire turning wood to heat. For Scorpio, pain is fuel, loss is a lesson, and failure? Just another invitation to rise. Snake real-life metamorphosis, a true story. Let me tell you about my friend Mark. He was a Scorpio, born into a family that never understood him. He always felt like an outsider, too intense, too honest, too unwilling to conform. After a brutal divorce and the loss of his job, most people thought he'd hit his end. But I watched him disappear from the social scene. No dramatic announcement, just silence. For months, no one heard from him. And then he re-emerged. Not the same, transformed. He had launched a foundation supporting single fathers recovering from emotional abuse. He became a counselor, a healer. He didn't speak of revenge. He spoke of rebirth. That's Scorpio. They don't rebuild what was. They build what needs to exist. Scorpion death as initiation. In astrology, Scorpio rules the 8th house, the realm of death, rebirth, sex, transformation, and legacy. This isn't by accident. Scorpio doesn't flirt with change. They are change. But not change for the sake of drama. Change for the sake of truth. For alignment. For liberation. That's why they're often misunderstood. Because to witness a Scorpio letting go of something you think is working just fine feels irrational. But what you don't see is the energetic truth they feel. They sense when something is no longer alive, even if it still looks beautiful on the outside. Their soul cannot fake aliveness. And so they walk away. From jobs, from marriages, from lives. Not because they're cold, because they're real. Skull's sacred death in spiritual teachings. In Zen Buddhism, the concept of no self, anatta, teaches us to let go of ego identity, to allow the I we cling to die. And in doing so, we find liberation. Scorpio lives this path intuitively. Where others fear ego death, Scorpio seeks it. They do not fear being shattered, because they know how to rebuild. They know that what breaks is never the soul, but the illusion surrounding it. And so, like the phoenix, they rise. Not as a better version, but as a truer one. Milky Way navigating the abyss. Scorpio is the navigator of the abyss. They walk willingly into the dark corners of the psyche where others dare not go. They explore grief, shame, obsession, not to dwell, but to transform. They do not run from wounds. They study them. They do not hide from pain. They hold it, whisper to it, and ask, "What do you need to teach me before you leave?" And the miracle is, pain always answers. That's the Scorpio alchemy. Handle why you need a Scorpio during your dark night of the soul. When your world collapses, most people vanish. Scorpio leans in. They don't flinch at your ugly cry. They don't tell you to stay positive. They sit beside you in the wreckage. And they see you, not your status, your mask, or your failure, but your raw, broken brilliance. Because they've been there. They know what it's like to be shattered into pieces. And they also know how to rise. Gemstone final reflection, the gift in the fire. What if destruction isn't punishment, but preparation? What if Scorpio's chaos is actually sacred? In your own life, think about the times when everything fell apart. What came after? A new direction? A deeper truth? A stronger self? That is the Scorpio path. So if you're going through a season of endings, don't resist. Let the fire do its work. Let what is false burn. Let what is true rise. Scorpio is not here to keep you comfortable. They are here to make sure you evolve. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom. Because in the next chapter, we'll explore why Scorpio's silence is their greatest power and how what they don't say speaks louder than 1,000 words. Scorpion Part 3. The eyes that see through soul's eye. You walk into a room. You smile. You speak. You charm. Most people nod, accept your mask, and move on. But not Scorpio. They sit in silence, watching. And in a moment that feels longer than it is, you feel seen. Not your presentation. Not your narrative. But the part of you you've hidden, even from yourself. That's the Scorpio gaze. The gaze that pierces illusion. Have you ever had someone look at you, and you knew they weren't just seeing your face, but your past? your lies, your ache, your longing. That's what it feels like to sit across from a Scorpio. It's not judgment. It's recognition. They're not interested in who you pretend to be. They want to know what's beneath it. Because Scorpio doesn't just read people, they decode them. Like they've seen this version of you in 100 lifetimes before. Crystal ball while they see what others miss. Scorpio's perception isn't just intuition, it's attunement. They don't hear words. They hear tone. They read pauses. They feel the room drop when someone is lying. It's not magic. It's spiritual pattern recognition. They're astrologically ruled by Pluto, the planet of the underworld, power, secrets, and deep transformation. Combine that with their water sign nature, and you get someone who feels energy the way others hear music. It's instinctual, unteachable, unmistakable. Brain a story from a counseling session. Years ago, I worked with a young Scorpio woman named May. She was training to be a therapist. In a practicum class, we were watching mock therapy sessions. Most students focused on what the client said. May? She paused the video and said, "He's pretending to be angry, but he's actually ashamed." Notice the smile right before the outburst. It's not real. That's a deflection. The rest of the class went silent. Even the professor was stunned. Later, the client confirmed it. She was right. Scorpio doesn't guess. They know. Because they listen with the soul, not the ears. New Moon, the sacred mirror. Being around a Scorpio often feels intense, not because they demand your energy, but because they mirror it back to you. You laugh nervously? They don't. You change the subject when things get deep? They stay rooted. This isn't rudeness. It's sacred stillness. They reflect you. And that's why many find Scorpio too much. Not because they are, but because Scorpio's presence reveals how little you truly show of yourself. They don't allow performance. Only presence. Person Lotus position, a Buddhist insight. Mindfulness is vision. In mindfulness meditation, we are taught to observe without judgment. To see what is, without flinching, without fixing. Scorpio lives this. They do not look away from your wounds. They do not cover them. They watch. They hold. They witness. Because they know, what is seen, heals. What is denied, festers. Their vision is not a tool, it is a gift. And in a world that prizes filters and facades, their honest gaze can feel like fire. But it's sacred fire. The kind that cleanses, not destroys. Performing arts why you can't lie to a Scorpio. It's not that they'll catch you. It's that you won't be able to look them in the eyes while you lie. They don't always confront you. Often, they just watch. They'll let the silence stretch. And in that space, your words echo back at you, and you feel your own dishonesty. They are soul mirrors, and mirrors don't lie. Stop sign when they withdraw. If a Scorpio pulls away, it's rarely out of drama. It's because they've seen something. Something off. Something false. And they no longer resonate with the energy. No explosion. No performance. Just distance. Because they don't need to argue with inauthenticity. They just refuse to coexist with it. Compass final takeaway. Let yourself be seen. Being around a Scorpio is an invitation. To drop the act. To speak what aches. To be real. And if you're brave enough to let them see you fully, unmasked, you will not be judged. You will be met with eyes that see past performance. With a presence that holds what most abandon. So the next time a Scorpio looks at you, don't look away. They're not staring. They're welcoming you back to your truth. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom. In part 4, we'll dive into Scorpio's sacred silence, why what they don't say is often more powerful than anything they ever could. Scorpion Part 4, Silence, Solitude, and the Sacred Mirror waxing crescent moon. Some speak to be heard. Scorpio stays silent, and you still feel their presence. Their power doesn't lie in what they say. It lies in what they withhold, in what they choose not to explain, in what they've understood but don't need to declare. Because Scorpio doesn't use words to reveal power. They use silence to reveal truth. New Moon, the language of silence. Scorpio's silence isn't empty. It's electric. It holds tension, truth, and transformation. While others scramble to fill space with words, Scorpio listens. Not passively, but with focus sharp as a blade. They read energy. They interpret intention. They hear what was meant, not just what was said. Their silence isn't passive, it's piercing. It's sacred space where falsehood can't breathe. Person Lotus position, the spiritual strength and stillness. In Buddhism, silence is a teacher. In Zazen, seated meditation, the silence doesn't just quiet the mind, it reveals it. You begin to hear the thoughts beneath your words, the pain beneath your smile, the truth beneath your performance. Scorpio lives this way. Their stillness is not detachment, it's devotion. Devotion to inner knowing, to discernment, to authenticity. And because they've learned to live with their own silence, they don't fear yours either. Candle when Scorpio withdraws. If a Scorpio disappears from your life, it's not always because they're angry. It's because they're processing. Scorpio doesn't vent on impulse. They retreat to reflect, to rebuild their emotional boundaries, to regain clarity. They do not shout in chaos. They observe the chaos from within and emerge with a deeper knowing. This is why they often come back stronger, calmer, more focused. And sometimes, they don't come back at all. Because sometimes, silence is the closure. Milky Way, a story of sacred withdrawal. I once had a Scorpio friend named Alina. We were close, until one day, we weren't. No fight. No explanation. Just distance. Months later, I reached out. She replied simply. I needed silence to hear myself again. And that spoke volumes. She had been absorbing too much noise, mine, the world's, her own internal storm. Her withdrawal wasn't punishment. It was preservation. Scorpio doesn't owe you their energy. They offer it freely until they feel it's being drained. Then they go within. And when they return with insight or not at all. Magnifying glass tilted left. Why their silence is so uncomfortable. Scorpio's silence forces others to face what they usually avoid. Guilt, insecurity, avoidance, falsehood. In their presence, you begin to hear yourself again. Because there's no noise to hide behind. No pleasantries to distract you. Just truth. Unfiltered. Unforgiving. Unavoidable. And this is where Scorpio becomes the sacred mirror. Shield the fortress within. Solitude is Scorpio's temple. They don't fear being alone. In fact, they require it. Because it's in their solitude that they recalibrate, heal, alchemize pain into insight. This is where they tame their own chaos, long before you ever meet them. So when you feel their silence, know this. It's not emptiness. It's self-mastery. Person lotus position. What we can learn from their stillness. In a world addicted to noise, Scorpio teaches restraint. In a culture obsessed with sharing, they model containment. They remind us. Not every thought needs to be said. Not every moment needs an audience. Not every silence is absence. Sometimes, it is presence in its purest form. Compass final reflection, the power behind their quiet. You don't have to hear thunder to know a storm is near. Scorpio's silence is that storm. Not violent, not chaotic, but charged with power and presence. If you've ever sat across from a Scorpio and felt undone without a word, you felt their sacred silence. And if you've ever been left in their quiet withdrawal, don't rush to fill it. Sit in it. Reflect in it. Learn from it. Because sometimes, what they don't say is the very thing your soul needs to hear. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom. In part 5, we explore Scorpio's sacred loyalty and why betrayal is not just pain, it's spiritual violation. Scorpion Part 5, Loyalty, Betrayal, and the Soul Contract Handshake. Broken heart. To some, loyalty is convenience. To Scorpio, loyalty is sacred. It's not a social agreement. It's a soul contract. Once you've been chosen by a Scorpio, truly chosen, you are not just in their life. You are held, protected, remembered, bound by energy deeper than words can describe. But cross that line. The same loyalty that once warmed you becomes an unbreakable silence. Locked with key. What loyalty means to a Scorpio. Scorpio doesn't give loyalty easily. They watch. They test. They wait. But once you've earned their trust, they'll go to war for you. Defend you in rooms you'll never enter. Hold your secrets in silence even when you've forgotten them. See the darkness in you and stay anyway. Their loyalty isn't performance. It's presence. Through storms, through silence, through sorrow. But that loyalty is earned, not entitled. And it must be reciprocal. Stop sign. What betrayal feels like to a Scorpio. When betrayed, Scorpio doesn't just feel hurt. They feel spiritually violated. Because what was broken wasn't just trust, it was energy. It was sacred space. To Scorpio, betrayal is not just about the lie. It's about the energy behind it. The cowardice, the disconnection, the dishonoring of what was real. They don't hold grudges for petty reasons. But they will never reopen ground that has been desecrated. It's not revenge. It's spiritual hygiene. Scroll a story of loyalty and severance. There was once a Scorpio client of mine named Theo. He had a business partner for 5 years, built trust, shared dreams, and even helped the man through a painful divorce. But one day, Theo discovered that the man had been embezzling funds. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He simply dissolved the partnership, took legal action, and never spoke of him again. When I asked how he felt, Theo said, "I buried the bond. I can grieve it later. Right now, I protect what's sacred." That's Scorpio. Their endings are clean, final, respectful, because to them, letting go is an act of love for themselves. DNA why Scorpio feels betrayal so deeply. Scorpio governs the 8th house, which rules deep soul ties, karmic entanglements, and shared energy. So when they open to someone, it's not casual. They are merging emotionally, psychologically, sometimes even psychically. That's why betrayal isn't just a mistake to them. It feels like a violation of the divine, like being spiritually unthreaded. And this is also why they don't give second chances lightly. Because to reopen a spiritual wound just to test if it'll bleed again is not evolution. It's self-abandonment. And Scorpio refuses to abandon themselves. Person in lotus position, Buddhist parallel, right relationship. In Buddhist ethics, right relationship is not about clinging. It's about mutual respect, integrity, and alignment with truth. Scorpio lives this principle deeply. They do not stay out of obligation. They stay out of energetic resonance. Once the energy fractures, they step away, not out of hate, but out of harmony. And in that departure, they often teach us the most painful and necessary lesson of all. Not everyone you love deserves access to your soul. Fire the quiet devotion behind the intensity. Despite their fierce exterior, Scorpio is one of the most devoted signs in the zodiac. They remember your laugh. They save your voice memos. They protect the secrets you told them 5 years ago. They won't always say, "I love you," but they'll remember how you like your coffee. They'll defend you when you're not around. They'll check on you when everyone else forgets. Their love is not loud. It is loyalty in motion. Compass final reflection. To lose a Scorpio's loyalty. To lose a Scorpio's loyalty is not always dramatic. No slammed doors. No messy fights. Sometimes, the only sign is silence. A final text. A polite goodbye. A lock where there once was a key. And the emptiness that follows is not just absence. It's the void left when someone who once carried your energy drops it to protect their own. So if you are blessed with the loyalty of a Scorpio, guard it like a treasure. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because once they're gone, you don't just lose a person, you lose a sanctuary. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom. In part 6, we'll explore how Scorpio turns pain into power, why emotional wounds become weapons of light in their journey of transformation. Scorpion Part 6, Turning Pain into Power. Scorpio's emotional alchemy test tube fire. Some collapse under the weight of pain. Scorpio uses it, like a blacksmith uses fire to forge steel. They don't just survive their suffering, they metabolize it. Every heartbreak becomes a compass. Every betrayal, a blueprint. Every scar, a sacred mark of transformation. They're emotional alchemists, and their laboratory is the soul. Fire the sacred science of emotional alchemy. Scorpio doesn't fear pain. They dissect it. They sit with it in silence. They look it in the eye until it tells the truth. Where others numb, they feel. Where others run, they remain. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they know. Only by feeling deeply can you transform authentically. Pain becomes their teacher, their map, their fire. Broken Heart. A story of Scorpio's inner transmutation. A Scorpio woman named Claire once told me, "After I lost my daughter, everyone tried to fix me, but I didn't want fixing. I needed silence. I needed stillness. I needed to sit with the ache until it taught me how to walk again." She didn't start a foundation. She didn't write a book, but she began quietly counseling mothers who lost children, not as a therapist, but as someone who could look them in the eye and say, "I've walked through it too, and you're not alone." No advertising, no social media, just sacred presence. That's Scorpio's way. They embody healing. New moon pain is initiation. In Scorpio's world, pain is never pointless. It's a rite of passage. They know the depth of the wound is equal to the height of transformation it can bring. They do not seek pain, but they do respect it. This is why Scorpio is often the one who helps others heal, while quietly bleeding themselves. Their strength doesn't come from invulnerability. It comes from intimacy with their own vulnerability. Person Lotus position. A spiritual lesson from the Buddha. There's a Zen proverb. Sit and let the mud settle. Only then will the water be clear. Scorpio lives this. They don't rush healing. They don't cover wounds with distractions. They let the wound speak. They allow the breakdown. Because in that stillness, something happens. The pain reveals its root. The ego dies, and the soul begins to rise. Cross swords from wounds to weapons. A Scorpio doesn't just recover. They rebuild with precision. Their emotional scars become guides. Betrayal teaches them discernment. Abandonment sharpens their self-respect. Failure strengthens their resilience. They don't forget, but they don't remain victims either. They transform memory into mastery. They become unshakable, not because nothing hurts them, but because nothing owns them anymore. Magnifying glass tilted left emotional X-ray vision. Because Scorpio has walked through hell, they know how to spot it in others. This makes them exceptional. Healers, artists, leaders, lovers. They don't fear your pain. They recognize it. And because they've survived their own, they hold space for yours. But don't mistake their calm for naivety. Scorpio can feel your intentions before you speak them. They don't need you to confess. They already know. They've studied human emotion not from textbooks, but from personal apocalypse. Compass final reflection. Power rooted in pain. If you've ever wondered why Scorpio seems so powerful, so grounded, so unshakable, look no further than their pain. They've cried in silence. They've lost everything and rebuilt alone. They've loved with their whole being and had that love discarded. And still, they rise. But now stronger, clearer, softer in heart, harder in wisdom. They're not born powerful. They become powerful through transformation. So if you carry pain you've never spoken, if you've walked through grief, shame, loss, know that Scorpio sees you. And if you allow it, your pain can become your power too. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom. In Part 7, we explore the myth of control and how Scorpio's freedom lies in their refusal to be owned by others, by ego, or by fear. Scorpion Part 7, the myth of control, why Scorpio can't be owned. Compass stuff. Some people are born to belong. Scorpio is born to be free. Not the kind of freedom that's loud or rebellious, but the quiet, unwavering, soul-rooted freedom that says, I answer only to truth. You cannot own a Scorpio. Not with love. Not with guilt. Not with rules or roles or rings. Because Scorpio's allegiance isn't to comfort. It's to their calling. Stop sign. You can't box what's born to evolve. Scorpio is transformation incarnate. They were not built to stay the same. They shed skins like seasons shift. Try to control them, and you're not just resisting their independence. You're fighting their essence. They do not stay because it's safe. They stay because it's true. In the moment truth exits the room, Scorpio is already halfway gone. Link why control triggers them. Scorpio has likely experienced control early in life. A domineering parent, a suffocating belief system, a manipulative partner. They know what it feels like to have their wings clipped, to be emotionally blackmailed, cornered, or defined by someone else's fear. So when they sense even a trace of control, their soul recoils. Not because they're ungrateful, but because they spent lifetimes reclaiming themselves. Their freedom is sacred, and any attempt to cage it is felt as spiritual violence. Fire, a story of escape and self-return. I knew a Scorpio man named Evan. He was in a long-term relationship with someone who wanted the idea of him, but not him. The mystery, the depth, the presence. Attractive at first, but later, she tried to change him. Don't be so serious. Smile more. Why can't you just be normal? Eventually, Evan left. Not with drama. Just silence. Disconnection. Release. Years later, he told me. She didn't lose me because I stopped loving her. She lost me because she stopped seeing me. You can't possess what was never meant to be caged. Milky Way Scorpio in the illusion of ownership. In modern relationships, people mistake connection for possession. But Scorpio is not interested in being yours. They're interested in being real with you. If they stay, it's not because they're trapped. It's because they choose you day by day, soul to soul. Try to own them, you lose them. Try to earn them, you gain something rare. A love that stands beside you, not beneath you. Person Lotus position. Spiritual insight, detachment versus disconnection. In Buddhist teachings, we learn that attachment causes suffering. But detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It means showing up fully without clinging, loving deeply without possessing. Scorpio lives this when they're awakened. Their ability to walk away is not indifference. It's discipline. It's respect for you, for themselves, for truth. Because they understand. Anything built on fear is not real. Anything held by force will rot. Gemstone, the power of sovereignty. What makes Scorpio magnetic is this. They don't need you. They choose you. And that choice is worth more than 1,000 promises made from fear or loneliness. Their strength is not in domination. It's in sovereignty. They rule their own inner kingdom, their emotions, their mind, their spirit. You may be invited in, but you will never hold the key to their soul unless you're trusted to protect it. Unlocked why Scorpio can't be controlled, even by themselves. Here's the paradox. Scorpio doesn't even try to own themselves. They don't suppress their emotions. They explore them. They don't avoid death. They befriend it. They don't tame their passion. They channel it. They are not here to live a neat, polished, palatable life. They are here to burn through illusion, even if it means burning bridges, burning identities, burning everything that isn't aligned with their soul's truth. Compass final reflection. Freedom is devotion. Scorpio doesn't fight for freedom. They embody it. And if you try to cage that fire, you won't kill it. You'll only watch it rise higher without you. So if you love a Scorpio, don't try to tame them. Don't reduce them to your narrative, your needs, your fears. Meet them where they are. In truth, in presence, in permission. And then you'll witness something sacred. A soul that cannot be owned, but can teach you how to own yourself. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom. Because in Part 8, we explore Scorpio's connection to death, endings, and sacred transformation, and why what they bury always gives birth to something divine. Scorpion Part 8, Death, Rebirth, and the Sacred Art of Letting Go. Skull Sunrise. For Scorpio, endings are not tragedies. They are initiations. While others resist the fall, Scorpio surrenders. They know that the more completely something dies, the more purely something new can be born. This is not philosophy. This is their lived reality. Because Scorpio doesn't just believe in rebirth. They are the rebirth. Fire death as a spiritual process. In Western culture, death is feared. It's seen as loss, failure, grief. But to Scorpio, death is not the opposite of life. It is the catalyst for deeper life. A rite of passage, a sacred severing. They know that not everything is meant to last. Some relationships must collapse. Some identities must dissolve. Some versions of ourselves must be buried. Not because they were wrong, but because we've outgrown them. Funeral Urn, a story of letting go to live again. I once coached a Scorpio woman named Hannah. She was in a career that once lit her soul on fire, but now it only drained her. People told her to be grateful. You're successful, they said. Why walk away? But one day she came to me and said, I'm not alive. I'm just functioning. She resigned, let go, went silent. Months later, she resurfaced, creating sacred grief retreats for women who had lost children. She said, I had to let my old life die so that I could be born into my real purpose. That's Scorpio's magic. They don't just leave. They ascend. New moon. Why Scorpio walks with death. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of transformation, destruction, and resurrection. They carry an ancient familiarity with endings. Not just physical death, but the death of innocence, the death of false hope, the death of illusions, the death of ego. But unlike most, they don't mourn forever. They metabolize the end, and they emerge with new skin, new vision, new truth. Every ending becomes fuel. Every collapse, a sacred opening. Person in lotus position. Buddhist parable, the empty cup. In Zen tradition, there's a parable of a student who visits a master. The master pours tea into the student's cup and keeps pouring. The tea overflows. The student shouts, it's full. The master replies, exactly. You cannot receive anything new until you empty your cup. Scorpio empties the cup often, sometimes by choice, sometimes by fire, but always with purpose. Water wave. Why they let go without warning. Scorpio doesn't always announce the end. You may think things are fine until they vanish. Quiet, cold, absolute. It's not cruelty. It's clarity. They've already buried it in their soul before you see it in the physical. Because for Scorpio, once the soul disconnects, the body simply follows. They don't linger in half-loves. They don't resuscitate dead energy. They bury. They bless. They begin again. Milky Way. How they help others die and live again. Scorpio isn't just the one who dies and returns. They are the guide for others through the same process. They are the friend who holds your hand at the funeral. The therapist who can sit with your darkest truth without blinking. The lover who helps you shed the masks you've worn since childhood. They walk with grief like a priest walks with prayer. Not to explain it, but to witness it. Eagle from ashes to ascension. The phoenix is not a metaphor to Scorpio. It is their template. When the fire comes, they don't run. They walk into it, knowing that on the other side is their evolution. This is why they let go so fiercely, so completely, because they know you cannot become who you're meant to be while clinging to what no longer serves you. Compass final reflection, endings as a sacred gift. If Scorpio has taught the world anything, it's this. Let it die. Let the false identity go. Let the dead relationship breathe its last. Let the job, the friendship, the dream that no longer feeds your soul go. Because once you do, something miraculous happens. Your truth emerges. Your power returns. And what you thought was your ending becomes your becoming. So if you are in a moment of collapse, look to Scorpio, not for comfort, but for courage. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom. In part 9, we step into the paradox of Scorpio's soul, the lover, the warrior, the healer, and how they embody all three with unmatched intensity. Scorpion Part 9, the lover, the warrior, the healer. Red heart crossed swords herb. Scorpio is not just one thing. They are many truths stitched together with soul thread. They can love with a depth that redefines devotion, fight battles you never knew existed, and stand beside pain without trembling, like a healer in the fire. To understand Scorpio is to understand this holy trinity. The lover, the warrior, the healer. Red heart, the lover, love that touches bone. Scorpio doesn't fall in love. They descend into it. Love for them is not a transaction. It's not cute. It's not casual. It's a merging of spirit, breath, wound, and wonder. They don't want your highlight reel. They want your hidden rooms, the scars, the rage, the secrets, because that's where real love lives. Fire, a love story that scorched and saved. I once knew a Scorpio named Rowan. He loved a woman with trauma in her bones. Most men avoided her. He walked straight in. He didn't ask her to heal fast. He sat with her on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m. He read her journals instead of judging her scars. Years later, she said, "I thought love was supposed to fix you. But Rowan showed me that love doesn't fix. It witnesses." And in that, I began to heal. That's Scorpio. They don't patch holes. They hold you while you stitch yourself. Crossed swords, the warrior, fighting for truth, not ego. Scorpio fights, but not for show. They fight for the silent, for what's right, for what the soul knows, even when the world forgets. They don't wear armor because they want to conquer. They wear it because they've been pierced before. And when they stand up, quiet, calm, unwavering. There's no noise, just truth. Shield quiet battles, loud impact. A Scorpio client of mine named Cassie once challenged an unethical CEO in her company. Everyone told her to stay quiet. She didn't. She documented everything, waited, watched, and then exposed the truth, cleanly, legally, silently. She didn't want fame. She wanted integrity. And that's the thing with Scorpio warriors. They don't want to win. They want to restore alignment. Herb, the healer, walking others through fire. The greatest irony? Scorpio, who has suffered the most, becomes the safest place for others. They are the friend who doesn't flinch when you say, "I'm falling apart." They won't give cliches. They won't say you'll be okay. They will sit beside your wreckage and say, "I've been here. Let's breathe." Their healing is not technique, it's presence. They listen with the kind of stillness that heals what therapy sometimes misses. Candle, a moment of quiet healing. A student of mine, deep in grief after losing her father, shared that her Scorpio roommate would leave a lit candle outside her door every night. No questions, no intrusion, just light. "I don't know why," she said, "but that candle made me feel seen." That's Scorpio. They heal in silence, in presence, in rituals the soul remembers. Milky Way, all three at once. Here's the secret. Scorpio doesn't rotate between these roles. They embody all three at once. When they love, they protect. When they fight, it's out of love. When they heal, it's because they've fought for the right to feel again. They are not half-hearted in anything. Their soul doesn't operate on maybe. It only speaks all in. Compass final reflection, holding space for the whole of them. If you're lucky enough to be loved by a Scorpio, respected by them, or healed in their presence, know that you are being held by all three energies. the lover who sees your essence, the warrior who shields your name, the healer who cradles your ache. And you'll never forget the way they made you feel. Because it wasn't just love. It was transformation. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom. In our final chapter, part 10, we uncover Scorpio's eternal legacy, a soul untamed, unforgettable, and unafraid, and the timeless wisdom they leave behind. Scorpion Part 10, the final ascent, the legacy of an untamed soul. Milky Way fire. Some souls are remembered for what they said. Scorpio is remembered for how they made you feel. Long after they've left the room, you still feel the shift, the silence, the intensity, the mirror. Because Scorpio doesn't pass through your life. They carve through it, leaving not scars, but sacred imprints. Waxing crescent moon. What remains after they're gone? You don't just lose a Scorpio. You lose the mirror that showed you your soul, the anchor that stood through your storm, the energy that never lied, even when the truth hurt. You find yourself searching for the weight they brought, the gaze that stripped away your masks, the presence that needed no words. And then you realize, it wasn't just a relationship. It was a turning point in your becoming. Dubbed the sacred legacy, Scorpio's legacy is not fame. It's transformation. They won't always leave behind statues or trophies, but they will leave behind a stronger version of you, a truth you now live by, a scar that taught you how to protect your soul. They are the ones you meet before you evolve. And sometimes, because of them, you do. Waterwave, a story of soul impact. I once had a Scorpio teacher. She never raised her voice, never gave unnecessary praise, but she looked at you like you mattered. In my darkest moment, she said only this: "You're not breaking. You're being reshaped. Let the fire do its work." Years later, that one sentence still echoes. That's Scorpio. They don't give you answers. They give you permission to transform. Person in lotus position. Final teaching: liberation through inner truth. In Buddhist teachings, the path to liberation is not through perfection. It's through truth, through dying to illusion again and again until only essence remains. This is the path Scorpio walks and invites us into. They show us how to leave what no longer serves, how to let pain become power, how to love without ownership, how to die 1,000 little deaths and still rise, and most of all, how to never, ever betray your own soul. Milky Way, they were never meant to fit in. Scorpio isn't here to be digestible. They are here to awaken, disrupt, purify, elevate. They are not easy. They are not soft, but they are sacred. In a world drowning in distraction, they return us to depth. In a world that clings to surfaces, they invite us underneath. Fire. Final reflection. What the world learns from Scorpio. Scorpio teaches us that real strength is silent, that real love is fierce, that real healing is not always pretty. They remind us that endings are not enemies, that solitude is not emptiness, that power, when rooted in the soul, cannot be bought, broken, or tamed. To meet a Scorpio is to be called home, to the part of yourself you abandoned, to the truth you tried to bury, to the wildness you were taught to fear. But if you answer that call, you will never be the same. Sparkles, the path to Buddhist wisdom. Scorpio's final message. Scorpio doesn't want to be understood. They want to be witnessed. Not decoded, but respected. Not owned, but remembered. And when they leave, what remains is not their image, but the fire they sparked in you. Megaphone. Final call to action. If this journey has stirred something inside you, if you feel the call to go deeper, to love fuller, to stand in your soul's power. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom. For more zodiac journeys, spiritual truths, and soul-deep awakenings. Because Scorpio may leave the room, but the truth they awaken in you, that fire never dies.